Hello. Welcome to the third event in the Asian Pacific American Heritage Month celebration. The first two were biology and medicine. Now we are fortunate to have a change of subject, entertaining painting, and we are going to see a master painter tell us how to use the painting to increase the cultural awareness and international diversity. We are fortunate to have Joan Lok here. She has a gallery in Columbia, Maryland. You can visit. I'm not going to enumerate all the awards that she has got because we'll take the whole hour. So.
Can everybody hear me? Okay. As I was introduced, my name is Joan Lok, and when I was asked to come here and talk about painting and also, do a painting demonstration, I do have to say that when people do painting demonstration, it's a very unique way of expressions because it's only Asian brush painting, meaning the painting from China, Japan, Vietnam, or maybe from Korea, can actually do a demonstration within a very brief period of time, and yet the entire painting is completed. And some other paintings such as oil or watercolor or pastel, they usually do demonstration, but it's very hard for them to actually do from start to finish within a few minutes. And I have to say that today I will try to attempt to do that because what I find challenging is I usually paint on a table, on a flat surface, and what I found out when I walked in this morning is they have very set up easel and with very nice video taping, and therefore I think, maybe I should try to challenge myself and paint vertically. So that would be a new challenge for me. So, if it doesn't work, it's not me. Okay? I have it on tape. One thing I want to talk about is a lot of time when we go to, for example, Chinese New Year celebration or cultural presentation that involve artists, sometimes they would do a painting or calligraphy demonstration. But seldom they actually come to explain what you're looking at. And the same thing with, especially when you go to a cultural presentation, you may see a dance. They really do not have the chance to actually tell you why they're doing the dance, they did it the way they did, or why they're dressed in a certain way. So therefore, before I actually go into the painting portion, I prepared a PowerPoint, and the purpose is to kind of explain a little bit of what you will be seeing. And therefore, next time when you go to the Smithsonian, when you go to Flea Museum to see a big piece of artwork, you will know what you're looking at, or you will remember, oh, Jung said that, no wonder, it looks very different. And hopefully I'm able to achieve that. But because people remind me, do less talk and actually go into painting. So therefore I would kind of rush through this. And if you have any questions, you can ask me after the presentation because I actually will stay for a little bit after that. Okay, so art the soul for people. This is actually not said by a Chinese. It's said by, Western. The way I say it is because that's kind of how people look at art. Art, when you look at generation, when you look at history, we look at, okay, this is the warfare that they engage in. But when you look at culture, what do you look at? You look at the painting, the art that will produce that particular period. So in a way, that is not I know you guys in the technology. Apart from the technology, what are the cultural aspects of the people? We look at artwork that they produce in that particular period, in that particular generation. So let's look at the difference between the East and the West. A lot of times when I say East, I know that when we talk about Asian Pacific American, we include a lot of regions. And some of them has very different approach to art. So I do not want to offend anyone because some of them are not covering in this particular presentation. The presentation I'm covering is more the Chinese because of Chinese American, and then to a certain extent because of the way culture spread historically, how they migrate from one area to another geographically because of travel and trade. So it influenced the Japanese art, influenced the Korean, influenced the Vietnamese art. But then, it does not have as much influence, say, to the art of Middle East or the arts of the India and up to the northern part, to the very southern, very east, western part of Asia. So I want to be sure that it is not all Asian art, but many with China as center and maybe spread out to the neighboring areas. One of the things we talk about is subject matters. See, the way Chinese look at themselves, historically, look at ourselves as part of nature and not conquering nature. And therefore, when you look at portrait in Western art, you probably see like king, a queen, an important merchant doing this, really, really prominent. But when you look at figures in Chinese painting, a lot of times you actually don't see them. I mean, when is the last time you remember a figure painting in Chinese artwork in a museum? The one that you will see are kind of like this. The portrait of official, or you may see something that is a portrait of like Buddha or a religious figure, or to extent, or like people in the court, like ladies in the garden and things like that. Why? Because culturally, the Chinese culture do not look at ourselves as in competition with nature, but as part of it. When you see figures, you usually see them in an environmental setting that are part of it, they enjoy the mountain and water and things like that. So that's one very interesting thing. And as a matter of fact, the portraits that you see that are in museum, a lot of times they are seeing like really, very prominent position, very official looking. They are what we call ceremonial painting. They are for people to worship or for their descendants to burn, incense and things like that. So they are for ceremony. They are being painted for the role, not the person. Meaning that the face you can change it, but then it's kind of like the artist spend more time on the role that they are wearing, because it's kind of signified because it's a queen, it is a 5-star official, it is a general. So that's the difference. Okay. Another difference is prospectus, and we'll talk about it a little bit later when it comes to landscape painting. But as I say, I'm going to rush through this a little bit. Another very important thing is symbolism. In Chinese painting, sometimes you're like, why do I always see peony? Why do I always see lotus? I mean, there are all these other flowers out there. And the reason is because they symbolize certain things. And also, a lot of things that you're like, why do they always match this with that? Oh, because when you match this with that, it's a great birthday present. Because it symbolize wishes for long life or something like that. So there are a lot of very interesting things that is cultural. And next time when you go to your favorite Chinese restaurant, will they have a painting of fish? Count them? Most likely, they will be 9 of them. Why? Because 9 fish have a symbolism of being resourceful and profitable in business. So therefore, if they have a painting of fish, they have 9 of them. It also symbolizes. Okay, let's actually go through it. And subject matter, I already talked about it. Figures, I talk about landscape. Landscape, multiple and single focal point. In Western culture, it's single focal point. Stand there, and then you look at what you're looking at, and you have a vanishing point, and everything goes into it. As a matter of fact, when humans discovered that during the Renaissance, we were so excited by it that almost all painting play with the illusion, the vanishing focal point, everything become 3D and have. However, when you look at the Chinese painting, it may not have it. This particular one is by the all artwork in this PowerPoint is my artwork. And this one is a single focal point, meaning that you stand at the side of title basin and look. So this is rendered in the Chinese manner, but it's a Western focal point. But this is not. This is what we call a typical Chinese painting. What you see is, where's the focal point? What is the prominent thing in this? And then maybe you will see the waterfall, and you will say, no, it's mountain. And maybe you will find that actually the mist in the background is more interesting. The reason is because in Chinese painting, especially when you go to Film Museum, you see some really big one that is like 5 or 10 feet long and really long. What they do is they want you to enjoy journey. Really. The artists want you to enjoy the journey. There's a very famous show. It's called Down the Yangtze River during the festival. And the reason is it's not to just for a snapshot of, okay, this is the first day of the festival and this is how Yangtze River looks like. The story is this is the Yangtze River and this is during the festival. At the beginning of the day, people are loading the goods, and when you go further, this person is trading with someone else, and no, there's a wedding going on. And when you go further, there's something else. So it's truly the journey, the entire experience of the festival. So when you go to a museum and see some really big art, you're like, where's the full point? Where's the story they are telling? They are not telling one story. They are telling the entire festival. The whole thing about the entire festival is the experience the art is trying to give you. And when you go to like a very long painting of mountain, like the Yellow Mountain, what they're trying to do is try to let you visit the Yellow Mountain with the artist. And that's the difference. And when you say, well, where's focal point? Why there's no vanishing point? Why, it doesn't look 3D to me, because it looks kind of flat and horizontal. And the reason is because purposely done like that, so you can walk into painting. Okay? Light source. Another thing that is interesting about the Chinese painting is that a lot of times everything comes silhouette. And then you also see that most of the time we also limit our palette. We limit the number of colors that we use. There is a special field of landscape that is called the green-blue landscape, because they only use the green and blue mineral ink to color it. And there's another one that only use maybe burnt sienna with a kind of brown and a green. And this one is only green and blue, and the underpainting is ink. And it's done. There's no yellow, there's no red, because it doesn't need it. And because of the limited palette, you actually get a peaceful feeling. When you go to the Museum of Modern Art, a lot of painting confront you, kind of like yell at you and look at me and give you very strong emotion. When you go to the Film Museum, when you go to the Chinese wing or the Asian art wing of a museum, usually when you walk in, you feel very peaceful. You go out. Why? Because the experience that the art shares with you is one of peace or harmony. Okay, limited palette is another example. Only blue and ink and a little bit of brown in the background. Subdues weather condition. By the way, people who love Impressionist movement remember Monet and all the other great artists. They say they are painters light. As a matter of fact, they are painters who painted the Notre Dame, daylight, moonlight, evening light, dawn, dusk, or haystack, different light, different color. Beautiful. And in Chinese painting, can you tell where the light source? Is it from the top or the bottom or the side? It doesn't. And actually, sometimes people criticize and say, this is really poor art because it doesn't have light source and things like that. But the reason is because time in China, Chinese has 5,000 years of recorded history. And that is the record, unrecorded, maybe even longer. And therefore, time to a Chinese is relative. What 100 years? Like Qing Dynasty is 200 plus years, but it's like, it's no big deal. We have time is continuum, and therefore the light source, which is the time of the day, is relatively irrelevant when we do landscape. We usually do 4 seasons, meaning that instead of this morning or this is dusk, we will say that this is spring, this is summer, this is autumn, this is winter. And when you see 4 paintings of landscape together, a lot of time they are like 4 seasons, because it tells you the experience of the entire year, of the continuum of time. So that's also another concept that's very Chinese, very Asian. Symbolism, peacock and peony, posterity. So you may find this one in like business, in the entrance of a big restaurant, not only because it's beautiful, but because it actually symbolizes certain career achievement, and also prosperity and wealth. And I also added some bamboo in the background because bamboo symbolizes good health. And it's a very long story because in the olden time, before the invention of paper, people actually used bamboo leaves to write letters. And then they would send their letters to their loved one to tell them, I arrived in the distant land of Nanjing and I'm safe. So that piece of bamboo kind of like tell you good news that your loved one has arrived in the destination safely. And therefore bamboo symbolizes good health and safety. And then we with bamboo, and then, what else can you ask for? You have career, you have money, and you have good health. Symbolism. Okay. Simplicity in design. A lot of time when you look at the painting, it doesn't have a background. We do even have wash. The reason is because Chinese believe that it's as important to leave room for imagination, as important to leave room for the audience to participate in the appreciation process. So you see another use of negative space, simplicity in design, and all this background left empty. Host and guest relationship. This is very interesting. This goes back to the belief of Confucianism, starting in 6th century. Because Confucianism is not really a religion, it's actually a philosophy. What Confucius talked about is, he said that when people know their role in life, things will be in harmony. And why so? Because if the king knows his role and rule as a king, and with the farmers farm, and the seamstress do his seamstress work, and things, if everybody knows their role in life, and there's no conflict because everybody knows what their job should be. Of course, when you continue thought could be very devastating when you were born a farmer and not born an emperor. So therefore, there are a lot of criticisms in the belief and the philosophy. And but then a lot of people still have this belief that we need to know our role in life. And in a Chinese painting, there is something called a host and guest relationship. And people who are master of flower and bird painting will understand the relationship. There's a host and there's a guest. The host is kind of like the focal point of painting, or the main thing, and in this particular is peonies. And the bird is a guest. It's someone that is invited to come to the house. Anybody have a party in their house and somehow one of your guests can took over and come show? Do you like it? Does all the other guests appreciate it? And that is the reason. We have the host, we have the guest. The guest serves the host, and the host respects the guest, but does not take over. And it's very prominent in flower and bird painting. Okay. Another guest and host relationship. Harmony. And next time when you go to see a Chinese brush painting, and if you walk away with a peaceful feeling, try to ask yourself why. A lot of time it's in simplicity of design, and also in the limited palette, and this is one example. This is only yellow and blue, and that's it. And of course, mixed together, they have various green. But that's the painting. But because of the limited palette, because of the simplicity design of, play with the dot and the lines, it actually gives a realistic showing of what a lotus pond look like. But that, because of the simplicity of design, you can walk away with very peaceful feeling. I would love to see this, every morning when I wake up, if I go to work and get all crazy, And another one in landscape, also because of the simplicity of design of a very limited palette, doesn't compete with anything. And yet you can find different area of interest versus multiple focal point. And this is kind of like newer one, because usually we have very limited, very subtle color application. I don't know what happened to it that day. I just take some really wild color, and but still it's still a limited palette. It's pink and white and a little bit of green, and it does have a peaceful feeling, but it's a very joyful peaceful feeling because of the choice of color. Okay, so that is my presentation, and I know that I only have 25 minutes, so I'm trying my best to finish painting. Okay. What I'm going to do today is actually the flower in my garden. This is peony from my garden. And they have been, happy little bulbs for the longest time. And they actually started opening up yesterday and really boomed this morning. So I cut a few of them so we can use them. Okay. The paper I use is rice paper. It's very thin. And I'm going to continue to talk while I'm doing this. So as I say, I usually paint on the table, so we'll make it challenging as to what this will happen. Okay. We have two, so we'll do two. Okay. The paint I use is actually Winsor Newton. The reason why I use it is because Winsor Newton actually have very good pigment, and some of the paint that you can buy from that are produced from Asia may not have as good purification when it comes to paint. Okay, so therefore I use Winsor Newton. But every artist have a preference as to what they like to use and what they like to do. Okay. As I say, I'm doing two peonies. So the first thing I do is truly the flower. Okay. Usually what I do is to paint flat, and then every few strokes I will hold up for people to look at. But this time, since you guys have the screen right in front of you, let's see. Okay. This is actually the center of the flower. Different kind of Chinese painting. They also, just like all painting, there could be different schools if you want to really divide it into school. And my style is more in line with the school called Lingnan. And Lingnan means south of the mountain. It's actually a kind of like an art school or a way of painting that were renovated during the turn of the century. And it's highly related to the Chinese Revolution. And founders of the Lingnan school actually were overseas students from China to Japan, and then when they absorbed the change of how people look at art and things like that in Japan, they actually brought back various things, including the use of more colors, the use of light source, and also the way we make things three-dimensional. And so therefore my painting is more in the line of Lingnan school. However, I personally do not believe that painting should have school or category, because I think beauty is beauty and art is art. We should not divide ourselves because I'm impressionism, because I'm whatever you name yourself. So therefore, I open myself to a lot of I try different things. Okay, but let's see. Okay, this is not done. I mean, what I'm going to do is I just build base for the flower, and then we are going to do the leaves and stem, and then we'll get back to it because it's too wet. And rice paper is very, very thin. Because it is so thin that you have to give it tender loving care. If you do something very drastic to it, it would not like you. It will break a hair, and your painting will be ruined. The only thing about Chinese painting is that if you are into watercolor, you will know that sometimes people like to leave when they want to leave white on the paper, or they want to paint something light against a dark background. They will have a technique called masking. They will actually cover it with with liquid. When it dries, you can actually pull it out, and then you can protect the area. And by doing so, you can leave white space. However, when it comes to Chinese painting, you can never do that because rice paper is too thin. And when it is so thin, when you do that masking, it will actually tear the rice paper. So therefore, there are certain things that we cannot do in a Chinese brush painting. And because of that, we actually use or master the use of white color. This is actually the non-transparent watercolor. It's different because so therefore if you're going to like pure watercolor concept, you will later also use white, and it may be disqualified in some watercolor competition. But it's different. I mean, the way I look at it is I don't have a particular school. I look at which method and what is the way I can achieve what I want to achieve, and I don't think people should be stuck with the formality of a particular school or particular style. Artists are eccentrics. If I have any questions from the audience, I'll be more than happy to answer.
On each of your prints that you did before, they had stamps. What are they saying?
Oh, okay. When it comes to Chinese painting, a lot of times we would sign it with things more than a name. Sometimes, I personally just like sign it with my name, but then there are people who would sign it and say, I painted it on the 5th of November, 2007, during the like whatever festival, and it was raining outside. they would really do that. I mean, that's why you see like whole thing there. And then there are also times that people would actually do things like a poem or write like love story, or we have a landscape, and they would say that, okay, it was the middle of October, and I visited Alaska, and I have a good time, and I paint this to remember this, all things like that. So that is, that's sometimes a lot of words. And after the words, you would always see a red seal, and sometimes maybe multiple ones. And the reason for that is, first of all, could be the seal of the author name, meaning that, for example, Joan Lok, it would be Joan Lok or in stamp, okay? But it also could be one is the last name seal and one is the name seal. So there will be one seal that say Joan and another seal that say Lok, okay? So there will be two, okay? However, there sometimes would be even more than that. And why so? Because sometimes we have something called the leisure seal, which is, when I have a chance, I can get to the PowerPoint and I can show you. Sometimes the seal is used to balance the rest of painting. And say, for example, with this is done, this is not done. With this done, I sign here. Sometimes I want to put a seal here to balance it out, to kind of anchor the painting, because visually it creates eye movement. The seal is usually red. Although, some people use other color, most of them they are red. And by having different seal and different area, you kind of got the eye movement. And another thing is, what do we put on the leisure seal? I mean, if it's not your own name, what do we put in? People put in very, very creative things. They can put in a poem. They can put in a like a life theory, like, for example, I believe that everybody we should laugh at least once a day, or something like that, and I would just put that in seal. Or I can put a one line of my favorite poem, or I can put things like, I do have artists who said, I painted after I turned 50, or after I turned 70. So they would say that, or it would say something like, I was born in the village of Suzhou. So it could be a lot of different things, but most of the time it is to create a mood, and also to, it's kind of like some people when they sign their email, they have like a slogan of a famous painting by Einstein or whatever, because you really love what Einstein said, and then you kind of like become your life motto, and that's exactly what the leisure seal is. Sometimes the leisure seal is like that. Okay. All right. So the interesting thing about Chinese block painting is seldom do we actually do a sketch. What we call is we have the bamboo in our mind. And what it means is before you start painting, you actually have an idea of what you're going to paint. And by doing that, you are actually doing the composition while you are doing it. And although, as I say, I bought two peonies, I know I'm going to paint peonies. But because I don't have sketch, I cannot guarantee that what it will look like when I put the brush onto the paper. So therefore, I have to adjust. Every time when I put something on, I have to, continuously adjust to make sure that it is something that can kind of go with the float. Sometimes you see a little butterfly or a bumblebee. Of course, it could plan. It also could be a drop of ink. Just get into the paper, and then you're like, what do I do with it? Might as well, get a bumblebee there. So you'll be surprised. And but then that's why there are artists who actually describe a painting demo like this kind, almost like a recital, meaning that the artist may only take like 10, 15 minutes to finish a painting, but then the reason why they charge so much for the painting and things like that is because it is not 15 minutes that she used to paint. When she was home, she actually painted 3 months on the same stroke before she can get there. And to illustrate that, I just put one of my practice things. I mean, that's why I can paint a leaf vein so quickly, because at home I do this. And then you are a calligrapher of Chinese brush painting and brushwork, you will know that calligrapher always practice different strokes. And same thing with the leaves, the flower, the petals. So we always do different things because we have practice. It's just like a great pianist. Although you know the song by heart, but then every day you do have to practice in order to make sure that you keep your tray. Okay. See. As I said, I'm doing composition while I'm doing this. Okay. With 2 and maybe. Okay. Do you have any more questions from the audience?
You don't seem to be trying to make snapshots of the original, not in front of you. It seems to be more inspiration on the part. Yes, so we would think of impressions.
Yes. Yes. I sometimes do that, but not today. I do sketch. I mean, that's why I paint peony. I mean, plant peony in my garden because I do sketch them a lot. And in this particular one, I already know that I'm going to do this, so therefore I have an idea of what I'm going to do. A lot of times, what Chinese art want to do is, remember I talked about is experience on a snapshot. That's exactly what it is. That's why when we do landscape, we are trying to bring the experience of traveling to the mountain to the audience, and not just what you see when you stand in front of the mountain. And the same thing with flowers, the same thing with a flower and bird and insect. And besides the symbolism, it's trying to tell you what we are basically saying is it's not the portrait of the flower we are doing, it's the spirit, the essence of the flower, it's the beauty of the flower we are going to capture, but not necessarily the image. As a matter of fact, when it comes to Chinese painting, especially, I say there are different schools, the northern school, a lot of time you will see paintings that you know what it is, it's an eagle, but then when you look at the anatomy of the eagle, the head is really too big for the eagle, then you know it's an eagle. And the reason is because the artist is not trying to capture a portrait and trying to, like do what Audubon does, to make sure that, it's completely correct when it comes to proportion and color and everything. But it's basically capturing the spirit of the eagle. It goes back to the Chinese history of doing Tang Dynasty, doing Song Dynasty. Every time there's a change of dynasty, it's usually, obviously not willingly, because the dynasty has deteriorated. We have bad rulers and we have natural disaster, and then the people become unhappy and they want over to the government. And so it's a big turmoil before change dynasty and become new dynasty. And during the Song to the Yuan to the Ming to the Qing, there are some ethnic Chinese in the southern part that were ruled by the Mongolian from the north, and then they do not look at themselves as the same people. They look at themselves being invaded by foreigners, although, the Western world are all Chinese, But then, because of that, there's a lot of resistance due to the change of the dynasty. And then in the Song to the Yuan to the Ming, because the Yuan and also Qing are regarded as foreigners. So you have the Chinese foreigner. Or not, we call Han and the non-Han people. And things like that. And there are a lot of people who refuse to serve in official duties. Because in the Chinese system, it's actually the most sophisticated system that you actually have an examination to get the official position. When you look at human history, a lot of cultures do not have that. You are born in royalty, and then you will become a royalty for the rest of your life. You're rich, famous, things like that. And then the farmers will all be the farmers. But in China, even for thousands of years ago, we have a system that we have an examination, that farmers can become official, that peasants can become official through an examination process. And during change of dynasty, people do not want to do that because they feel that I don't want to serve the foreigners, the invaders. I don't want to serve them. And therefore, a lot of people turn to become hermits, go to the mountain. They are educated people, but they don't want official duties. What do? They draw, they paint, they make poems, and write messages and things like that. And what they have done is they find themselves a need, urge to express themselves, not only in poem, in painting. And a lot of them, because they are trained poets, not artists, I have to say that they did not really study the anatomy too well. Okay, so therefore they're unable to do so. And another thing is because they do not care about the way the things look, but the way it presents. That's what we talk about symbolism. That's what we talk about different things. When you go to a museum and look at some of Chinese painting, it's not important. It's important, but it's not prominently important. As a matter of fact, you brought it up. This is a very interesting book. This is actually the recollection of things from the National Museum in China, which is which during the Civil War moved to Beijing, moved Taiwan, and then this is kind of like the first time Taiwan National Museum came to America. And this was in the Museum of Art a few years ago. This is a painting. I mean, it's very unusual. When you go to the museum and see this, everybody is like stunned by it because it almost looks like a photo. And it was done in the Ming Dynasty, in the Qing Dynasty. And when you really look at the inscription of who did it, it was actually done by Italian missionary. Yes, it was done by Italian missionary who went to China to preach the church and the religion, and somehow get in the court and become a court painter. His Chinese name is Wang Sailing. And he is very, very famous. But then when you look at the Chinese historian evaluation of his work, he was not highly regarded. Why? Because they say that according to the official critics of people of his time, they critique him of paying too much attention on the anatomy and the 3D rendering, and does not care about the use of line and stroke and spirit of the artist. Meaning that when you look at this, it's just like a photograph. It is very correct. However, it doesn't tell you personality of the artist. And what Chinese painting stress is the brushwork, because they say that the brushwork of the artist represents the personality of the artist. And that is actually more prominent in calligraphy. And I know I have some Chinese audience here. You probably know that a calligrapher, people would say that when you do the characters, If you are a mean person, it shows. If you are a generous person, it shows. They do say that. I don't know how to say it. But then there are people who are masters of calligraphy, and they say, okay, this person is mean, this person is cunning, this person is generous, and this person could be a good leader, and this person can be a bad leader. They can actually say, because they say the brush will actually show personality. And that is kind of like a very fun part of Chinese history, that even, meaning that we were actually exposed a few hundred years ago to how to do things in a 3D way, to be photorealistic, but we made a choice to abandon it and say this is not really good art. And it's interesting because, as I say, Lok is very famous. He also did, which is very famous thing, is a show of 100 horses. I think it is in the museum in the Smithsonian right now. And I think they show all the time because people are astonished by it. It is really good anatomy of horses. And there are 100 of them. And they all look different, all have different personality, they engage different activities. However, during his time, when he was a court artist, this work was not high regarded because they think that it's just like, like a photo, and it doesn't show the personality of the artist. Okay, okay, now get back my painting. Okay. I don't know how much time I have. I do think I'm running out of time because I think I'm only 45 minutes. But as I say, the negative space is as important as the positive space. So I can always declare that it's done. Okay. But let's at least. Okay. Yes. Okay. So we'll see. When it comes to a demonstration painting, what I usually do is when I go back to the studio, I usually throw it away. Because I mean, the more you look at it, the more you're like so bad. Okay, so let's see. See, one thing we want to make sure is we don't want to make everything very crowded. So this is already the flower, and you have the leaves supporting it, so it doesn't look too heavy on top. And I have this stem. Maybe, let me see what I want to do. But I add a little flower ball. I'll do a little bit of. Okay. I'm doing composition as I'm going, so kind of making decision on the spot. So obviously you need something here because it's too heavy on that side. And by the way, could be superstition, could be symbolism, but they don't like number 4 in Chinese. So that when you paint flowers and birds, don't get 4 fish or 4 flower. Because I was told no one would buy it. It was actually told by one of my friends, Zheng Yiqi. He said he is a very famous painter of goldfish. And one time he went to Malaysia to have his one-person show there. And then of all his other paintings, he had one with some goldfish. And then, of course, it is gorgeous and beautiful. But then one of his friends told him, said, "Oh, dang, no one will buy this one." And he said, "Why?" "Because there are 4 of them." This one. Right. Looks good. Okay. I'll probably declare it done very soon. What I'm doing actually is closing some of the little triangles. So it makes a big mask. It looks visually better. Okay. First of all, I think another 50 years. I've always been interested in art, and I always loved to paint. And when I was in Hong Kong, I was in the Hong Kong School of Fine Art, but it was studying Western art. Okay? I started Chinese brush painting actually in 1988, and believe it or not, my first teacher is actually a gentleman in Chinatown in New York. Yes, and I just fall in love with it, and I think, I'm not sure whether you feel that, but being in America, and I have a feeling that when I'm going into art, I have to do Chinese art instead of this art. I mean, I have this urge that I have to foster and advance the art of my culture. So therefore, I actually have, some soul searching as to, what direction I want to go, and then I decided on Chinese art. And another thing is, I have to say that I actually tried oil, not because I was very bad at it. I was pretty good at it, but what I found out is that I got married, and I did oil painting, and I worked on this in the morning, and then I pack everything up, I put it away. My husband came home, he's like, this thing smells very funny, I can't breathe. It's a turpentine. I mean, it really bothered him. And so therefore, I gave up oil. Because the true story, it really bothers him. He just cannot breathe. He said, I can't breathe. I said, okay, I know my direction. I'll do something that doesn't smell bad. Yeah. As I say, I can get this painting done. I probably, when I go back to the studio, I will have all these little things that I find that I want to reevaluate. But and I may look at it and see if I want a butterfly or not, or where do I put my signature. One of the interesting things is when it comes to the painting, Asian painting, Chinese painting, not only do you look at the subject, you also look at the calligraphy and also the seal and also the placement of it. There are a lot of paintings that are ruined because of the bad placement of the seal and the signature. I personally do not do a lot of writing in my artwork because what I find out is that the more I write, the more people come to me and ask me to translate it. and because if you do not read the language and you don't understand it, you have an urge to try to find what it means. And it could be very, very burdensome on the people who try to show the work or try to understand it. They do not understand the work. So therefore, what I personally do is I usually just sign it. However, occasionally I'm getting inspired and I write something longer than that. And I also, usually do not use a very big seal because as I said, because I'm Chinese, I'm also American. So I'm very westernized. And I, also take the Western belief that, when it comes to the art, it's the art itself, not your signature that speaks, about art. So therefore, a lot of times I will sign it, but then they are not very big. They are not very big, and then the seal are not very prominent. Or I put it in a way that, you can see it because people will say, wait, what's the seal missing? But then it would not be, like in your face and become part of the composition because it can become a part of the composition. But then I myself do not choose to do that. Okay. Yeah. I would declare this done. Thank you. Oh my God, got it.
On behalf of IKEA and Asian American Heritage Club, we'd like you then use this plaque to show our appreciation.
Okay, cool. Oh, that's right. Thank you. It's very nice. Thank you. And do call me. I do have some business card here, and you can go to my website or email me. And I'm local in Colombia. Okay. All right. Thank you.
This is on the lake?
This where I got this?
No, your gallery.
Oh, no, actually, my house. In my living room. Turned into a studio.